In the autumn of 1947, two American scientists from Fort Detrick sat down in occupied Japan to interview a Japanese lieutenant general. They wrote a report afterwards, and in it, they explained what they had obtained. Information about human susceptibility to disease, the exact doses of bacteria required to infect a person. Their words, such information could not be obtained in our own laboratories because of scruples attached to human experimentation. They noted the cost, 250,000 yen. A mere pittance, they wrote, compared to what the studies had actually cost to produce. And then they made a request. It is hoped that individuals who voluntarily contributed this information will be spared embarrassment because of it. Embarrassment. That is a United States government document, declassified, sitting in the National Archives. And the men being spared embarrassment had run the largest human experimentation program of the 20th century. The man they interviewed was Lieutenant General Ishii Shiro. He held a medical degree and a doctorate from Kyoto Imperial University, one of the most prestigious institutions in Japan. He ran Unit 731. The unit operated in Manchuria, in the northeast of China, which Japan had occupied, and the choice of location was the point. Manchuria gave Japanese researchers isolation from prying eyes, and, in the language of the official American history, an abundance of subjects on which to experiment. The work began at a camp called Zhongma, near Harbin. It expanded into a large facility south of the city, at Pingfan. The official record is not vague about what happened there. Ishii conducted experiments on human beings with plague, cholera, glanders, and other pathogens, and Japanese scientists vivisected the infected bodies of their victims in order to record the day-by-day progress of the disease through the system. Vivisected. That word is doing a great deal of work, and it is the word in the document. The victims were Chinese, Mongolian, and Russian prisoners. That is not disputed by anyone, including the United States government. The whole operation ran under a cover name. Officially, it was the Anti-Epidemic and Water Supply Section, a public health unit. Here is why almost nobody outside East Asia has heard of it. In the final weeks of the war, Ishii ordered the facilities demolished and ordered the surviving experimental subjects killed. The evidence was destroyed on purpose by the people who made it. Then the Americans arrived, and something worse happened. American interrogators started questioning Japanese scientists in 1945 and 1946. The official history describes them as cagey and evasive. One informant detailed Ishii's human experiments with glanders. Others denied knowing anything at all. And Ishii himself, during those interviews, tacitly confirmed that human subjects had been used. Then he hinted at something. He indicated he would be willing to say more if he were granted immunity from war crimes prosecution. Read the official summary of what happened next, because the phrasing matters. Few dissenters in the U.S. government emerged. The State Department tried to limit how far the commitment went, on the grounds that Ishii was a notorious criminal. But for the most part, U.S. military and intelligence officials were receptive to a deal in which the general would avoid prosecution in return for information about his work. Then the Soviet Union got involved, and the American concern shifted in a way that tells you exactly what was being protected. In early 1947, the Soviets began gathering their own evidence on Japanese biological warfare. American officials were alarmed, and the reason was not that war criminals might escape justice. It was that the Japanese scientists might tell the Soviets too much, and compromised the strategic advantage the United States held in biological warfare. And there was a second worry, stated plainly in the record, that a furor might develop over the appearance that U.S. officials were exploiting Japanese expertise in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Not that it was happening, that it might look like it was happening. So a list of American institutions went to work. The Occupation Authority under MacArthur, the War Department Civil Affairs Division, the State War Navy Coordinating Committee, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the State Department. All of them attempted, to one degree or another, to shield Ishii and his colleagues from prosecution in order to keep the Japanese biological warfare program from exploding into the public domain, while they gathered more of it for themselves. When the Soviets asked to interrogate Ishii, the Americans allowed it on two conditions. An American official had to be present in the room, and U.S. authorities told the Japanese, in advance, precisely what answers to give. The final decision recommending that Ishii not be tried is in the files, in the correspondence of a State War Navy subcommittee. By early 1948, with the Cold War accelerating, the whole question faded. The Tokyo Tribunal was wrapping up. The lesser war crimes trials were winding down. And the official American history states the outcome in one flat sentence. With the help of the U.S. scientific and intelligence communities, key members of Unit 731 had avoided prosecution for their use of humans in biological and chemical warfare experimentation. Now, someone did put them on trial. In December 1949, at Khabarovsk, the Soviet Union tried 20 Japanese servicemen and convicted 12 of waging bacterial warfare. 6 were from Unit 731. 2 were from Unit 100, a separate biological warfare organization. The Soviets published the full court proceedings in 1950, including Unit 731 documents, and the West dismissed it. The verdicts and the evidence together were written off as another Stalinist show trial. This is the part I find hardest to sit with. The one tribunal that actually prosecuted these men produced a published documentary record, and because of who published it and when, it was discarded. Cold War logic meant that evidence coming from Moscow was assumed to be manufactured. Some of it was propaganda. The underlying facts were not. So how do we know all of this now? Because in December 2000, the United States Congress passed the Japanese Imperial Government Disclosure Act. It ordered an interagency working group to locate classified American records relating to Japanese war crimes and to recommend their release. In January 2007, the National Archives announced the result. 100,000 pages declassified. Those pages are why we can quote the Fort Detrick scientists directly. They are why we can name the committees. They are why the sentence about avoiding prosecution appears in a government publication rather than a conspiracy forum. The erasure was real. It lasted more than 50 years, and it was undone by an act of Congress, not by a documentary, and not by a confession. There is one line in all of it I keep coming back to. Such information could not be obtained in our own laboratories because of scruples attached to human experimentation. 2 scientists, writing to their own government, acknowledging in the same sentence that the data was valuable and that their own country's ethics forbade producing it. They did not conclude that the data was therefore unusable. They concluded that it was a bargain and asked that the men who made it be spared embarrassment. The subjects at Pingfan are not named in that report. They were not named in the immunity discussions. There is no complete list of who they were. We know the price of the information, 250,000 yen. We do not know how many people it was made from. Subscribe for more history that got buried.